of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Agenda approval, anything from council or from staff, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have a couple items. We have the addition of the Trailhaven Bridge replacement that we'd like to add as 9C. And then the addition of 10E under police officer hiring process. And then we do have a resolution recognizing the holiday toy and food drive under 11B. So those would be the changes, 2 additions and 1 just the addition of a resolution.
Perfect. Anything from council?
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We have commission representatives, Corinne and maybe Tom Anderson online.
And Tom is
Perfect.
joining us virtually.
Awesome. Open forum. So for anything not on tonight's agenda, I don't know if we have anyone in the crowd here for that, but I think maybe online.
Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and raise your hand and we can recognize you. Mayor and council, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Then we'll go on to 6A, which is a year in review presentation, and Jessica's going to walk us through it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Well, with some technology issues, I apologize. I do have some slides of our wonderful staff, some photos that I can share with anyone who wants to see, but I did just want to recognize the great work that we did in 2022. We had a variety of city events. We had Night to Unite. We had a great turnout for both the primary and general elections. We did our first ever holiday toy and food drive, which was a big success. We got some great news that we received a broadband grant. So a big portion of our community is going to be getting broadband that didn't have access. We've been working on a lot of financial planning for the city over the last year. We got a 3-year labor agreement in place. We've done a lot of work on water supply planning, which is going to continue it a bit into next year, but we've done a lot of work on laying the groundwork, and we are very hopeful for some federal funding that we will hope to receive here. We're implementing a new fee schedule, and we also have a Trailhaven Bridge project that's been was a little bit unexpected, but something that we've been working through. In addition to that, we've had all sorts of development projects from Napa and Nelson International to Corcoran Farms Business Park, right Hennepin Electrical Substation, Cook Lake Highlands, St. Therese, and then a variety of our residential projects going on as well. And I note that we did have the most planning projects we've ever had in a year. So it was pretty exciting. Beyond that, we had many staff changes and many some new additions to the team and some changes, organizational changes throughout the year. And we had 4 people recognized for their years of service, but I am just incredibly thankful to the community and the council for your support. And I think we had a great year, and I'm excited that we have the team here and the team that joins us every day. So we're doing great work, and I thank all of them, and thank you all in the community for allowing us to continue to do the good work and serving the residents of Corcoran.
Thank you.
All that, and we changed city administrators too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No plans for that this year.
I hope.
I hope not.
Checking.
Yeah.
I hope not. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to consent agenda, which consists of items 7A through 7D. Does anyone want to pull anything?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull 7D, please.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through C.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 7D, Jeremy.
I read this through and it prompted me to think of something, and maybe I'm just channeling something Dean said at some point.
One of us said. I'm not gonna claim it.
If we're going to go forward with allowing additional dwelling units as part of existing platted properties, should there be a consideration for any additional connection charges for sewer capacity in the MUSA or water line access fees, park dedication? Should any of those be considered part of an ADU application?
My understanding, looking at the ordinances of other cities, typically you share your access point to the sewer between the ADU. It's supposed to be a part of the principal structure. It's not supposed to be something that can be easily separated out because you're not supposed to be able to subdivide the property. And so I think that's why you wouldn't have an additional charge. Additionally, it's not meant to house really another family. It's supposed to be, typically you see it at a couple, like an older couple, or even a young couple, or it's used to house an older child. Maybe either they have some disabilities or they're a young student and they're coming back for the summer and they want their freedom. So typically it wouldn't be something where the limitations in the code that I've drafted are to prevent it from being another principal dwelling unit on the lot. It's supposed to be accessory. It's supposed to be smaller and to limit some of those impacts.
So it wouldn't necessarily be any different than having a larger family in a home without an ADU. would be
Exactly.
the philosophy there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So does that answer your
I am satisfied.
questions? Okay. The only comments I had on that was, I definitely get some of the updates and changes in the rural residential. I have trouble saying that. I think there are some needed changes there, and it sounds like, and George, I know you put a lot of time into that. I'm a little concerned on some of the impact it might have inside the MUSA on some of the other zones where that's currently allowed as an IUP. And if we're changing it to just administrative permit and Natalie, I brought this up with you before, size limit for those would be up to 960.
Yes, so
Okay.
for our, Mr. Mayor, in the urban districts, where the biggest difference is you have a limitation based on 25% of the rear yard for any accessory structure. So you would still have that limit for an ADU. So really what you're going to see more in the urban area is either a very small ADU that has like a footprint that it fits within their limit, or you might see like a loft potentially to have you could have some additional square footage made that way, but they do have a footprint limit to further limit that you're not going to have that same limitation in a rural residential lot. I'm hoping I'm making sense right now.
Yep.
Because you have a lot more allowance in the rural residential
Right.
than you do in the urban. So I don't, at this point, we haven't seen an ADU application in a lot such as Tavera or something like, we haven't seen something like that. And I think there will also be a lot of those neighborhoods, there's going to be HOA limitations as well that would prevent something like that. But theoretically, there could be some custom built lots subdivided at some point in our MUSA. But there would be some additional limitations that you don't have in the rural residential that I think already addresses some of that concern as far as the size of the structure.
Okay. Thank you. I think that answers my big question, or I'm still a little concerned on some of the, I'm trying to think of the neighborhoods where we've had a couple ADUs in the past. I can't remember the name of the neighborhood, but off of Snyder and
Mhm.
Hackamore.
Yeah, so those are urban reserve right now.
Mhm.
And so with the urban reserve, I did not do a CUP process. So they would be capped at that 960 square feet still of the administrative permit. And then I think, as you said, the other option would be to make we have a lot of options. I'm not trying to only present two, but another option to consider would just be make a CUP across the board. It would be a potential way, or a CUP within the MUSA. We could look at something like that if that's preferred. But if we want the administrative permit process, I guess I don't really know.
I guess the only change would be right now, it would be allowed just as an IUP and it would change it to an administrative permit.
Correct. Yep. That would be the difference between what was already approved with those two and those. And as after your conversation I had, what are we going to do with those that were IUPs? We would basically send them a letter saying, this is now an administrative permit.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really wouldn't change those. It it would remove some of the barriers and hurdles that property owners have to jump through to get that in place to begin with.
Okay. Sounds good.
One more question, I guess. How would this interact with the rental ordinance?
So right now, the rental ordinance was drafted knowing that ADUs were approved through an IUP and we're going to be reviewed every 3 years. If we approve this today, I would readjust our rental ordinance to include ADUs that are rented to a non-family member essentially. So that would be subject to our rental ordinance. Yes.
So if it's a family member living in the space, they wouldn't need a rental license.
Correct. Yep. So the same limitations that we would have elsewhere, basically, they would just simply be applied to ADUs as well.
Okay, so it wouldn't have an effect on the number of rental ordinance permits available unless it's a non-family member using the space.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
Then all I got to say is you got it all figured out.
I wish I did.
I just,
Cool.
everything that you've gone through and done in this is very well done. Thank you. Thanks for the involvement also on your part and such. I think it's a good.
Yeah.
It's well thought of, and obviously if we miss something, we'll fix it. But you're all over it, Natalie.
Thank you. But to point out an error that the mayor brought up, there is a typo. So if you do make a motion to approve, we have to fix that. So that I can fix it on the back end, paragraph.
I can just make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to correct the, gotta find my page now where it is. You said it's in multiple locations.
Yeah, I
actually?
would just say paragraph or standard 10. Correct the typo in standard 10 for the ADUs, and I'll address it everywhere in the
Okay.
ordinance.
And just for reference, it's page 26 is one instance of it. It says accessory dwelling units are subject to the same height restriction for principal structures as determined by the zoning district, but most not exceed the existing height, but should be
Must.
must. Yeah.
Got it.
So I'll make that motion to have that corrected.
Correct.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item 7D.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, George. Okay. Consent.
Good luck.
Yeah,
I'll be back for conditional use.
sounds good. Sounds good. Drive safe out there.
I'll look forward to the open house invite.
All
Probably be next fall. I love it. Good job.
righty. Planning business, we have 2 items. And I actually don't have it on my agenda, but we can do public comment opportunity here for items 8A and 8B, which is park dedication ordinance amendment and a concept plan for Red Barn Pet Retreat.
Yes, thank you. I think that was a unintentional.
No worries.
On the agenda. So anyone joining us in the audience, if you'd like to speak, you can come up to the podium, state your name and address. Otherwise, anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or reactions and raise your hand and we can recognize you to speak. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, let's go right into 8A.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. In front of you, today is a park dedication ordinance update. We've been looking at this for a few months now. Staff had to work through some data issues that we had with the county, but we got to a point where we feel comfortable moving forward and update to the park dedication ordinance. And we did find that there was not an error in zoning ordinance, but some change that needed to be made to the fee schedule that shows that commercial and industrial is for per acre instead of per unit. So that change is reflected in the fee schedule. We will be approving later, hopefully approving later this evening. But I just note that in the staff report, that's the big change. We did look at a variety of sale data and other information as we reviewed information with the county, and really our update today is based on sales data. So it does update in the proposal in front of you does update and increase slightly for most land use categories and decreases slightly for the high density residential, the amount of land required. So with that, we would move to adopt the ordinance. I would note we will be looking at doing summary publication for this and the ADU ordinance at
At
the
the next
next
meeting, yeah.
at the next meeting. But
So,
I'd be happy to stand for any questions anyone might have.
any questions on that? I think Jeremy might have one or two.
I wanted to thank you for doing this.
Oh. Oh, it was quite, I learned so much. I think that myself and Jessica Buck is on as well. We learned a lot about the process and what we can and can't do and how we really get to those numbers. And I think we have a really good plan and we're going to try to do this at least every 2 years, if not more often.
And I'm excited that we uncovered the issue with the fee schedule on the commercial industrial, because that'll be a major net benefit to the park system over the coming decade versus if we hadn't gone through this exercise. So I'm really excited about that. I was just wondering a little bit about the land use categories. We've got the table with the changes to current percentage of land versus what will be proposed. I was a little surprised to see the low density residential drop. Can you explain how that might impact the kinds of developments that we have been seeing, given how they've handled trails and some of those items in the past?
Sure. So it is, it changed a bit because some of the land has been developed. So that's why the change in the needed land requirements
Okay.
has changed a bit, because we've seen some of those developments come in, as my understanding. So we have less land to develop within those. So we, for the park dedication nexus that we create, we look at the available land and what its proposed use is. And that, I think, is part of the change that we saw. Because we take out those, some of those changes, was my understanding of why that one area in particular changed. My understanding, I'd have to confirm with Kendra. She spent some time with Jessica and I, making sure we understood the changes and worked through it, but that's my best recollection on.
Okay, then my other question is more specific to a particular development. So with the change to commercial and industrial,
Yes.
if we have a trail segment going through a commercial industrial lot, because the proposed percentage of land is so small, there might be a more significant financial impact to those kinds of trails. For the one that we just approved, where the park district told us that they would reimburse us for any trail, are they aware of the new dollar value that would be associated with that? Because I would imagine that we're going to go from, ballpark like 400,000 or 500,000 in park dedication. I forget exactly what the trail dedication was, but it's probably an acre. I don't know. We might just want to double check with them.
Yeah, we can certainly check with them and make sure that they're aware of it.
Okay.
We've been, we
Moving it.
met with them earlier this week to talk about the cooperative agreement, so you'll be seeing that likely in February or March, depending on when they get it through the park board.
Okay.
But that's something that we can make them aware of.
Yeah, better that's coming up now as opposed to after.
Right.
Into that, so.
Yeah. So we've been looking for ways to come see if there are any ways that we could get credit for some of the things that
Right.
we've already started.
I know they've mentioned that in the past at other cities as well, so.
Excellent.
Anything else?
No.
Dean?
I just the one, and I think you said it, but I gotta just confirm. On the back page, second page, under park dedication. You get single family per unit, multifamily per unit, commercial and industrial. Is that
It's per
per
acre.
acre? You
Yeah,
said
so
that.
it is per acre.
And I think that was one of the questions I had. It was like,
Yes.
how cheap are they getting by if we're putting 4 units on 70 acres? So
And so
perfect.
it, this, the park, the zoning ordinance does have it correctly. We are fixing it in the zone,
Yep.
the fee schedule, which is the, generally trumps. So sometimes, this is gonna put us in a net better position when we approve the fee schedule.
I love it. I think you said it, but I just had to ask one more time. But
Appreciate you
spaced
asking.
out there a little bit.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-474.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Okay, on to 8B, which is a concept plan for Red Barn Pet Retreat.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Red Barn Pet Retreat, the applicant is Daniel Benjamin, who is in the audience with us tonight. And he requests an opportunity to appear to solicit comments on his sketch plat and sketch site plan for the parcel located at the northwest corner of Steek Road and County Road 101. There are multiple components to the request, so I'm going to and he has sent us some revised plans today. So I'm going to go over broadly the revised plans here. And then I'll summarize some of the key points that we would like your feedback on. So this is a slightly adjusted sketch plat. So this would be for the first phase of development, which is specifically platting the current parcel to allow for the Red Barn Pet Retreat, which is his is an existing business today further west on Steeg Road. It's a home occupation license. And this would be an expansion, a second location for the applicant. The changes to this plan compared to what you see in the staff report, there was a access location right around here that has now been removed. So he's showing a location, access on where the road is proposed to go in that would serve the development, as well as a additional access point for the Red Barn Pet Retreat that goes on to Steeg Road. That would conflict with a turn lane that's currently there. So staff continues to recommend that the only access point for the entire development be onto that road, and then Red Barn Pet Retreat would need to have access directly from the internal road. This is just a rendering of the building that he's proposing for the Red Barn Pet Retreat. This would be the access that he's showing onto Steeg, and then the road would be further back here for the whole development. And I just wanted to show this. He is proposing several fenced in areas, which does make sense considering the use as a commercial kennel. The only comment that I have is if we go back to the plan here, the fence is on the west side, does look to be going just a tad bit into the 25-foot setback. So he would to have it at the opacity and the height that it's showing in the rendering, it would need to be pushed back to meet that 25-foot setback from all road frontages. Then I wanted to just show this to show the changes to the east elevation. There was a second wall sign that has now been removed, so that's no longer something that we need to spend time discussing on. And he did add a second architectural element to break up the mass of the building by having a change in color. So that has been resolved. This is a sketch of the entire plat for the development if the parcel were to get subdivided into, I think he's showing 1, 2, 3, 4, showing 9 lots instead of 10 now. So there was a 10th lot that was previously shown that did not meet the minimum size requirements, and that has just now been removed. He's still showing the a greenhouse potential user to the west, and then the vet clinic to the east along County Road 101. One of the staff comments is the fact that the vet clinic does not have direct access to a street. It would not be able to get direct access to 101. So we do think it's important that the lots be redesigned so that the vet has direct access to the internal roadway, so that you're not depending on a parking lot to get into the parking lot for the vet clinic. And this is just a zoomed in of that area in case it helps with the discussion. So that was just summary of all the changes. Oh, he also did provide proof of parking for the greenhouse and vet clinic lots. The vet clinic lot, parking lot doesn't show the amount of parking spaces that you need for that amount of use he's suggesting, but we could handle that with a site plan later. So that's not particularly important. We can handle that detail later. Other than that, I think I've gone over everything. So for the discussion topics, the main question that I have for you and the applicant has for you is, are we open to a commercial kennel at this specific location? It would require either a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning to commercial, or a zoning ordinance amendment to allow commercial kennels in the I-1 industrial district. He also is showing a potential greenhouse user. I don't know how certain that is. The applicant can certainly speak to that. But keep in mind that a greenhouse would be allowed in a commercial district. It is not currently allowed in industrial. So if we're open to one or both uses, how would you prefer to see that change made? We would also appreciate staff's thoughts on staff's analysis of the layout of the preliminary plat and the proposed parking formula for the commercial kennel. We don't call out commercial kennels in our parking table. So the closest use would be a vet clinic, but the amount of parking spaces that would result in did seem excessive. So I refer to the American Planning Association documents, and if we go by some of those calculations, then that would what he's showing would be in compliance. And then the proposed access for the overall development, as well as the Red Barn Pet Retreat. And then the proposed building materials. It is a steel building, primarily steel, and that does not meet our underlining zoning ordinance or the Northeast District standards. If it is something that you are okay with, then that would be a zoning ordinance amendment that we would need to add into this process. If not, then he probably would need to look into some kind of cladding material to kind of wrap around the steel. So he would have to look at some other options for building materials. And that's what I have.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions off the bat for Natalie, or do we, get that back
sorry.
up?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Keep that up.
Or do we want to, does anyone have questions for the applicant?
Can you, yeah, Mr. Mayor, could you throw up just the layout real quick one more time?
This one?
Yep. Instead of having. I might have just answered my question. Initially, it's building the red barn,
Mhm.
and then everything else falls into place afterwards. I'd rather see. Would it be acceptable to have one entrance? And the road be the driveway to the far left where the actual cul-de-sac is, and then the pet hospital or the veterinary clinic, the road or their driveway being on the north side, accessing that cul-de-sac. Just something isn't right here, and I think you said it, we don't want to have a vet clinic going through a parking lot to get to
Mhm.
those kind of things. That would be my number one thoughts. I love what this is, but we've got to step through a whole bunch of hoops. It's great. Obviously, the other places or the other parcels would be industrial
Well,
to some effect, or
commercial.
residential, commercial. We'd change it all to commercial.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, so this parcel, the existing parcel would be rezoned as commercial.
Yeah,
So the subsequent subdivision, those would all be commercial lots, if that helps answer that question. And then I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So asking basically if we could put a driveway access further north to allow the vet clinic to
have its own access instead of going through a parking lot.
The only issue with that is there's a lot of wetlands in the area, and there's going to be
Yeah.
a need for a lot of stormwater. So I don't know how exactly that would play out once he
Okay.
gets that once he has that shown on the plan. We do not allow flag lots, so it would need to meet.
Never mind. You just answered my question on the flag lots. Now I understand what's going on. What would the thoughts, and maybe this is for the applicant, what are the thoughts of the other other parcels in this is commercial. That's my question, but
Yeah, and I do think he prepared a brief presentation if you would like him to approach the podium. So, and he might be able to answer some of that.
Sure, we can, if there's nothing else ahead of that. Sure.
I'm, it was great to read it, and see it and all that. It just sounds like, excuse me, he's quite the visionary. And then the last question I'd have is, what are you gonna do with the old barn? So,
Okay. So I'd like to address the parking, or sorry.
We get your name and address first for the record.
My name and address.
Yeah,
Daniel Benjamin, 19520 Steed Road.
thank you.
So, there is a little mistake even on the revised. These are a double entrance. So the nature of the business, we have a high volume of drop offs for our daycare. High volume of pickups. We have 2 hours where it's very busy. If we have everybody coming in on one side through here, it's gonna jam the whole
I'm gonna
place.
go crazy. Yeah.
So this isn't an entrance exit, this is just an entrance and it quickly gets people off of the street. That's my thought process. And as far as the vet, there would be a sign here, and we made a change clearly showing that the vet is to the right. And so they could use the right entrance lane and go immediately to the right and the left or the left, but humans are gonna do what humans do. It's
Yep.
nice and wide. And also allows for clearance for the fire truck, etc.
Mhm.
But to be crystal clear, this is a Red Barn vet retreat. If I do this, this will be part of the Red Barn brand. It won't be some separate unrelated business. It'll be a separate business legally, of course, but we're trying to build a brand. So the thought process was get them off the street, and as they exit, if they're backed up in here, there's no problem. But if they're backed up trying to get in here, we have a problem.
Mhm.
And so this was actually in, the flow of traffic was kept in mind for that. This isn't an entrance exit, it's a double entrance, and then this is only an exit. So if we got 6 cars here, that's fine, it's not jamming all of this. These 2 businesses, especially during surge time, are gonna have more traffic than all this combined. And as far as the future lots go, these I feel strongly about. Obviously, Red Barn Vet Retreat.
Mhm.
And that also goes with sharing the parking lot and the driving concern. It is the same brand. And the reason I wanted commercial was because this here plays to the rural, plays to the rural, plays to the rural, and it can be done in stages. And this, I wanted to see what the community needs and what they're doing across the street. And also, right now, we're a rural city. As we develop in the future, we develop that in stages and we become less rural. But that way, we're applying what's said right here in the design. And so brief, can I do my brief presentation?
Sure.
Okay, so I didn't really know what to say for my presentation, so I started with the Corcoran Northeast District Plan and Design Guidelines revised October of this year. And then the O1 District Overview and Purpose, Sustainable Design Framework. It had 4 major points. The vision of the Northeast Design Standard is to encourage sustainable development that meets public demand. It requires the responsible use without unacceptable social, economic, or environmental impact. So my thought process is, we'll go in order, starting with the demand. We have reached capacity of the current location while winning many awards. And when I mention the awards, is it speaks to the point that we have a track record of many communities doing. The next one is economic impact. We have tons of support with 0 complaints. Showing no, social is number 2. We have tons of support with 0 complaints, showing no social consequences. We are also not a business that is open very late. Just like the first Red Barn Pet Retreat, we have already considered the impact of the community. The future plat shows the neighboring greenhouse building position to create a buffer. There will also be substantial screening. The third one is the economic. The fact that Red Barn Pet Retreat is turning away such a large volume of customers proves that we will have a very positive economic impact on Corcoran while also creating over 50 jobs. And then the last one, the environmental consequence. So lastly, environmental consequences. I have chosen to feel like steel not just because it is 0 phase and 0 maintenance for over 45 years, but also the fact that steel is 100% recyclable. The site design allows for a thoughtful, steady development in stages instead of just leveling the current natural prairie immediately. This will provide a permeable acreage and support wildlife pollinators until the next steps of development. The plan starts with one step at a time, and the ability to grow with Corcoran's changing needs. The other thing that I took into consideration is specifically number 2, design principles. Building new development site and building design should provide a visual cue that you are in Corcoran. The use of regional building materials, native plants for all developments is encouraged. Development in this district should be thoughtfully designed to reflect Corcoran's rural character. The use of natural materials such as wood, siding, brick, and stone is encouraged. Buildings shall have architectural details, features, and patterns to provide visual interest. My response is I strongly believe the site and the building design that I presented was thoughtfully designed with lots of visual interest and specifically represents Corcoran's rural character. Those are the 2 things, or that was the 2 things I wanted to bring up right out of the Northeast District Plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? I'm kind of working through a bunch of different
I
questions.
feel like this is, because it's directly north of a pretty significant residential area, I like it better as commercial than I did as industrial.
Okay,
Ordinarily, I wouldn't be open to significant changes to zoning in
mhm,
an undeveloped area. But in this case, I've always struggled with how close the industrial area is to a residential area. So I think this would be a more appropriate transition, especially when you look at the other permitted uses in commercial versus the permitted uses in industrial. So I like that part of it. In terms of the specific use, we send our dog to a daycare and it's great. And it's wonderful to see that as an amenity in the city. And I'm glad that you guys are thriving where you are now. Are there any complaints with barking dogs or anything from the existing neighbors where you are today? And how might that differ if you've got more animals to take care of?
So far, we have specifically 0 complaints. And I've touched base with the city on a couple of occasions to confirm that. Denny, Steve, and my neighbors, they matter a lot to me. When I was here presenting this with my first business, I made a lot of promises to them, and a lot of promises to you guys, and I kept every single one. I had one person speak against me specifically. She stopped by when I wrote the narrative of the month before, that's roughly 2 months from now. The only person that ever spoke against me stopped by and thanked me for the job that I'm doing, and the fact that it's impacted her 0. Now, will dogs bark? Absolutely. We run a no bark program, meaning we correct barking. That's one of the things that makes us award-winning and special. And you can speak to that. Many people can speak to that. You can look it up on our reviews as well to confirm that.
Okay.
Or I can show you guys it. Dogs barking, we correct it. So the barking compared to other places, night and day. And then again, with positioning it in the center instead of all the way to the left, that was thought of potentially as a greenhouse in the future. And then the fencing helps a lot with it as well. The major thing that helps is the fact that you correct every single part.
How do you do that?
A can-do attitude and perseverance. Positive reinforcement training with a negative, which is a timeout, but it is specifically training. We started with 2 dogs. Dogs do what dogs do. So when we bring in these problem dogs and new dogs and puppies, they learn from the other dogs and they learn from us. They know about it.
Okay.
It's an incredible amount of effort and labor, but it's what we do.
Okay. Very good. Glad to hear it. One related question, because there's a wetland so close,
Yes.
how many dogs will there be and what do you do with the waste?
So all the waste is actually taken off site. When we did my first location, one of the requirements was to pump all my wastewater off. And I'm pumping an exuberant amount of wastewater off. In hindsight, it's probably less invasive than my house. The only water that's going down our drain besides the public bathroom, the employee bathroom, is our sanitizing water and our mop bucket water that's sanitized. All waste is taken off site. And underneath all of the turf that I did, it wasn't necessarily a requirement, but I put in close to a foot of crushed limestone that neutralized the pee. We washed down every pee, the section, but we're just fanatics across the board. This same thing, this will be all crushed limestone beneath, which is a neutralizer that you're in. And every single piece washed down because we don't want to smell like pee with fanatics.
Mhm.
And poop is offset.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Very good. Thank you.
I think I tend to agree with you, Jeremy, that typically, I'd be hesitant to give up any of our industrial land because we don't have a whole bunch of it in town. But this has been kind of one area that I could see being a concern if a very heavy, like, heavy industrial, or it'd still be light industrial, but a more intense user went in there. Regarding this specific proposal, I think I still have a lot of questions regarding access that staff has mentioned, and Dean touched on the access to the center road there, with the vet clinic, as well as that second access. And I don't know if the explanation changes anything on staff's opinion on,
Yeah, that portion was not clear, so I have not had engineering have a chance to look at that. I do think it would impact. Because typically I'd have to look at our definition of frontage, but if we're saying that the access for the vet is now this kind of L, I think that impacts the width of the lot compared with our definitions that we have, so I'd have to look at that closer.
Okay.
Additionally, I mean, but I don't know if Kevin has any thoughts he wants to share on it, but I do know ideally we would get it down to one access point for the entire development. So I do think there'd still be some concerns with that, but I'd have to let Kevin speak.
Yeah, in general, our position's pretty, I mean, it was designed for one axis north, one axis south.
Mhm.
It, for the same reasons that he's concerned about getting cars off and blocking up the cul-de-sac to the north, we have even more traffic going east-west on the collector road. So for the same reason, he's trying to get stuff up, we're trying to get them off to a different road. So I think you're gonna continue to see that as a staff comment and recommendation.
Gotcha.
In terms of how to lay out the sites, we can talk, I mean, that's to be determined with more detail, but in terms of access to STIG. Both public safety and engineering would recommend due to the proximity to the intersection. And the type of road. And the ultimate design of the road, we
Right.
recommend the access to be off of the collector road. Similar to all our collector roads, we look to minimize that even through neighborhoods, right? Like through Ravinia, you don't see any driveway access off Waste Parkway, and that's intentional.
Gotcha. Thank you. So I think that would be a one of my biggest concerns.
Mine for those two accesses, I understand your traffic flow. My problem is you got people missing the first two lanes, turning right to go into the parking lot. That second one, how are you gonna keep that a one-way out? And then the people that miss the first turn, they're gonna go all the way down to the neighborhood and start turning around in other people's roads. So it just, that stuff we're thinking all out.
Oh, for sure. Well, my thought process was not people, so if we get them off the road, they're off Steep Road, because that's the major concern, back up on Steep Road. They're not gonna back up getting out because they have all this room to get out. This is a two-way entrance, enter and exit. But if they're gonna be on the road, if they're trying to enter here, because everyone's gonna come in at once, and as well as all of this, where this, it basically splits off the high volume in the morning and the afternoon for entrances. Now, let's say they miss it and they screw up. They're not gonna be stopping traffic here because they can turn around, exit and start over. But here, trying to get on here, there's gonna be backup.
So you're talking about having that, constructing the entire road with the initial building.
The cul-de-sac.
No, just putting it here temporarily until the rest of the development goes.
Okay, so they wouldn't have the rest of that to turn
Yeah,
around.
right now it would just be this for now.
So it'd be the
One
same
way.
concern that you were mentioning.
Yeah, I just.
So you wouldn't have people turning on to Stieg from 2 points. Just off
Just off
at one and back on at one.
and off, you have the freedom of being not in the street. So that's why I focus more on getting them off of the street.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the design. I just,
And then I had.
we got people that drive by the ball fields over here and turn around in one of our neighborhoods driveway and stuff. I don't know how much you can train them that way.
Like, I guess, there's another thing I don't understand, either what's the difference of this versus the two entrances here on 101 at the city?
So I can speak a little bit to that. We have public safety vehicles that have to have multiple entrances.
Yeah, and I think they added the separate one for the police to come and go, so they weren't having to go through the parking lot in an emergency. Is what I'm guessing. It was, I think 1994 is when the building was initially designed, so
Second.
none of us were here. So that was all part of the initial campus. So I don't know if they had the two driveways starting off, but the police have always been at that end of the building. And then the used to be a community center on that end. And I think when there were the concern for events and other things happening on the north end, they didn't want police cars responding emergency to calls through parking lots of people.
And I definitely can understand that wasn't emergency vehicles.
If you can train dogs not to bark, you might be able to train drivers not to go the wrong way and stuff. So I love what you're thinking. I love your mindset and make it a world-class kind of place. I love your ideas and attitudes. It's just a matter of what, if I can ask a question to staff. Across the street, we've got the big field there. That is
Across
that
which street?
commercial?
Yeah,
Outside of
that's
Steve,
commercial.
and
yeah.
we've got nothing there yet.
Nothing there yet. We've spoken with someone who is looking at developing the land. So part of what was said in the staff report is we'll need to do a feasibility study to actually determine the final street alignment, because we do need to make
Yeah.
it so that the other lot across the street matches and has the ability, it will work for that site as well. And then one other thing I'll just say, again, public safety didn't have a chance to review the revised plan. But with that entrance, that sharp 90-degree turn in, they'll probably point to that as being a concern. And then there's gonna need to be some kind of turnaround because of the length of the parking lot for the vet clinic, and there's no turnaround shown currently. So there's just some other things to keep
Yep.
in mind that we haven't in detail. I'm still very concerned with having that access point right there. I think it'd be better to flip the site 90 degrees so that we could have two access points on the internal road. I just think that would be, it will probably need to be a little further north than what they're showing right now, just because you need to, Kevin can speak to that better than I can, but you need to have space from the street to turn in and everything without having that. Maybe you go ahead.
Yeah, just you gotta create space for stacking and
Yep.
those rush periods.
Yep.
So really, this is concept plan. So next step would be a feasibility study should the applicant want to move forward. And as part of the feasibility study, they'll identify the uses as specifically as possible. And if they want to present something to be evaluated, we can evaluate that. The message that we're delivering as staff is it's a high hurdle to get a second access on a steep road.
That's where I was going.
So that's the message, and if there's something that can be figured out that works, it's the message is a high hurdle. The other thing to think about that I just realized here, and I apologize for not being in the memo, is typically when we plat a development like this, we require the full kind of road touching that property to be built. So we don't run into problems later. So in a residential.
That whole cul-de-sac.
Stop it.
So it'd be up to the north.
That's being platted. If there's public right of way on that, we generally want that constructed as part of it, and that may help with the emergency turnaround or whatnot, but that does have a financial impact depending on how it's laid out. You know, if you're running the full lot line and then maybe having a temporary cul-de-sac or something. But
That was my next
one thing
question.
that we generally do include, I apologize, that wasn't in the memo, I missed that.
Does that mean, if I'm understanding right, you want the whole road? put in?
Not the whole road, just up to what you're platting with your first phase, so it'd be
The northern,
way up
part of
roughly
that
or
first site.
40%. It would basically span your western property line.
So you're talking like here?
and then like a temporary turnaround.
And that's just a
Yeah,
general
height.
to avoid future issues when you're reconstructing it later. And
And then if the site to the north, let's say that's second site on the northwest there came in. No, that one, sure, that one came in, then you'd build it up to
you pull it
the,
up to that one, so you could still stage it depending on how it came in, but if it's being platted all as one future neighborhood and everything's being converted, that would be a recommendation to build that, and that might have some benefit for other comments that come later, like I said, public safety related.
Mhm.
The reason being is if that's being platted a right away and we ultimately take over that, we need to be able to turn equipment around similar that we would in a residential neighborhood.
Now, you mean platted or constructed? Which constructed has been a built project.
What he means is instead of building it to here, you would build it to here.
The entire road,
No.
To there.
Here.
right?
Because this is what you're
road-
building.
Yeah, what
And then the remainder here, you wouldn't build until you get lots in this area to develop.
You're talking like full road, curb and gutter to this point?
if it's approved as a whole plat, right? And so part of the ask, help me, Natalie, if the whole area gets converted to commercial and it's kind of planned, and that's phase one is what he's
Mhm.
proposing here in detail to highlight. If that's all approved as one package, that is planned for right away, then I think
Mhm.
we would want that to be constructed. If
Mhm.
he's going some other planning route,
He has to do a plat at the outlot, so it has to be a plat.
okay, so I'm just saying it. To me, that's a little unclear in how this actually gets transacted or platted,
Mhm.
but if it's platted with nine lots as shown here, we will likely. With all the commons, it will likely lead to a larger road than just a partial temporary driveway for people.
Mhm.
For those public safety maintenance. Even future concerns when you go to develop, how do you? It's gonna be, I mean, you're basically reconstructing a road right past the property. That's a business. Those are challenging scenarios. So we look to avoid that to some degree with all those combinations. I would anticipate that would need to be built further north. Basically the property line.
Would it be an option to plat it, so it's already set, but not build it? Build it, the project's going.
Well, I think the benefit of looking at your site and potentially even flipping some of these around, I know that's not a desire of yours. But that might minimize the length of that cul-de-sac that has to be constructed. If, you know, if that triangle were flipped and then you had it. Yeah, I'm just throwing ideas, and I know it's not your desire, but if that were flipped and maybe it's
Shorten
the
it up.
shortened width of the rectangle, it's a shorter
Mhm.
construction project that accomplishes the same goals, but. But I mean, this is where we're providing feedback for you to make a decision. We need a feasibility study. We need more
Yeah.
detail in the concept plan for us to actually make determinations. This is just trying to give you real feedback and what's coming for comments.
Probably the most well thought out concept plan that I've seen
Yeah,
come in front of
Yeah.
planning and council. Yeah, you have a vision, and I don't think I want to stand in your way of your vision, and I don't think our staff does either. It's just there's some things that you just can't do. Even though I like your way. And if you can teach Jeremy not to bark, Andrews.
Well, flipping, I think it's gonna change the whole visual
Yeah.
concept. It's everything. It was designed this way for definitely for a reason, and for utilizing traffic for advertising. There's many reasons.
I'd rather see something like this with a bunch of little buildings than an industrial building.
I'm just trying to speak to
You
the
bet.
Yeah.
engineering and transportation and maintenance challenges, so I'm not weighing in on,
Yeah,
that's your purview.
but it's all things that I'm seeing and stuff, and I think it's one of those things that just need to spend a little bit more time talking about it.
Yeah. But I agree with the feedback and some of the concerns on where that road would likely need to be constructed, and maybe if it's a different alignment that, you know, maybe just take some thinking about what would actually work for you guys and what would minimize that length of the road that would need to be constructed that could financially work for you guys for phase one, or maybe it's another site coming in with it. But I think those are pretty big concerns. The other ones that I had were about landscaping, and obviously the concept plan, so that didn't need to be all spelled out, but I was concerned about what some of the setbacks show and the amount of landscaping that would be needed to meet that. I don't know if staff had any concerns on like the reduced setback off of 101 with the additional landscaping needed, if that'd be able to, seems like it'd be able to fit.
I think it might be with showing the parking lot at 25 feet setback for the vet clinic from the county road. So I'd have to take a closer look at it. I did show some trees. I don't know enough from the information provided to see if it actually meets those standards and if there'd be enough room. Typically, I don't think we have a lot of well, we do have some commercial off of county road, but typically like with the industrial, you would have that parking lot set back 50 feet, even with the reduced, and there would definitely be enough space with that. So it might be tight, but it'd be something that I think we could work through for the most part. If that is the final layout that is actually pursued. It might be, again, if the buildings were to flip, it'd probably be very easy to meet the setback. It might not even need to do the extra landscaping to meet the setbacks, so,
To do the 100-foot
yeah,
setback, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
possible anyways.
Okay. Regarding the greenhouse, could you give a little better sense of what you're thinking there?
So
Here.
that would be, similar to lens, with a nice high end one.
Okay,
Propagate the back, sell it like that, and then propagate as a drove off site and sell on site.
okay,
Flowers, etc. Not like a place where you get mulch or yard scales.
gotcha.
Retail, right?
Mm.
And it also goes again with the rural theme. Keeping it pretty over there.
Gotcha.
Might be a little small. Because when I think of those centers, I'm thinking of like Heidi's or Lions, they've got 4 or 5 separate greenhouses that are part of the complex. Do you think there's room on that site to do something like that, or would you maybe just use some of the land farther to the north?
You were just talking, that's retail, not really
So
a
that would be-
nursery or anything like that. It would be.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be propagating, to sell to businesses. I would be selling directly in powder for that, really high end. Your big pots, your big flowers, that style, and propagate once it's filled up, propagate, offsite somewhere else, and then bring the product in.
Hmm.
It's just something I really like flowers and landscaping. It's profitable and it goes with the theme.
Mhm.
Trying to think. And staff's opinion on the access there, would it have the same concern with that kind of?
It's too close to Stieg, so it'd need to move further north. That was the initial thoughts that Kevin and I had earlier today when we were taking a look at it. And I think in the original plan, now that I'm understanding his narrative a bit better, I think he wasn't really showing the road being constructed. It definitely would not have worked with the original plan, because I think again, we would need street frontage to probably go all the way up to that property line at the very least, the way it's currently designed.
And it goes flat with more to give you guys an idea.
Right.
We're fine, obviously.
But in terms of those 3 uses, I think if we're talking about a change to commercial there, like we have been, they seem like decent fits. Obviously, there's a lot of details that would need to be figured out and a lot of logistics. The other concern, which isn't so much about these 3, but it's about, and it'd be more of a you issue, but the sites to the north there, if you thought anything, would something be buildable on those?
I did tweak the road a little bit. To accommodate a little more. Away from the delineation. The other thought process is sacrificing one of the lots for stormwater management. I was thinking at first, just feeling the stormwater management here. I was thinking minimal impact and within steps. That would be ideal. But, this one is tough to utilize. Use this one. And I just put this here. It was bigger, and it was never a lot, but I can understand the confusion. But it was just a leftover space.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you have any feedback on that idea, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did verify that this lot did not have any stormwater provided with, this was part of the original bellwether. So there was no stormwater like allocated for that pond that you see to the west of the proposed greenhouse. So all the new impervious triggers rules would have to be provided on site. So I do think utilizing, looking into that, if he wants to pursue, I would recommend to them to look at where you lay that out and the size of those. And it's gonna likely lead to reorientation of the lots, just to, put those in outlots or whatever to better maximize the site. So I think that's a good next step for him if you wanted to continue.
And I would remind you that obviously we have two counselors that are not here today. I would highly recommend reaching out to them at some point. 'Cause I know there's a lot of stuff that could make this project work or could, like the road issue maybe makes it not work. So that, it's tough when we have half the council here too. And if one person's thought process changes, it can kind of change the whole take on if a project really will work or not. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to them. I guess some of the other items were related to building materials. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
I like that you're trying to keep a barn appearance. I would be reluctant, though, to go with steel because it doesn't really appear anywhere in the class 1 material. What would you think about fiber cement siding, like a vertical panel to look like a barn?
Like a cement board.
Yeah.
So that is a good comparable. It basically needs to be painted much more often. Looks very similar, it looks similar to board and batten. It goes with the rural Corcoran theme, design principle. And it's got a 45-year warranty with zero maintenance. That's the reason I chose that. So when you're looking at the option down to the class 1 versus this specific class 2, that's why I wanted steel, zero maintenance, zero fade, zero caulking. It's just a foolproof system. The only thing it's vulnerable to is denting, which is hail, which is insurance coverage. It's got warranty against that as well. It's not, it's supposed to be covered for that. So the comparable, if I can't do steel, I'm gonna go with this inferior product for this application, which is cement board. It's painted, has to be repainted, more susceptible to failure, not recyclable. This is 100% recyclable.
I think you can get concrete panels that are 100-year warranty. Okay.
Maybe, but what's finished and how long does that last? They have to be even more often than 45 years. But the steel one, whenever this building gets deconstructed, in 50 years or 100 years, steel is 100% recyclable.
I think that the difficult thing there would be, we'd be talking a pretty significant change to not only the district guidelines, but to the commercial zoning. We'd have to make the determination if we're okay with that as a primary building material throughout any commercial that we have, or any C2.
And now this is farm look, this goes with red barn, obviously. Steel is becoming a much more dominant trend in commercial building from what I'm seeing. I think it's a big trend in commercial building. Not this farm specifically, but again, this is unique. That situation's unique.
Oh. Good deal. Battery dying? Okay, sounds good.
That's why I just.
I'm, Natalie, do you remember we had someone come in front of us? Was that the garages? They had a steel wrapped insulation. They showed us, Kevin, do you remember what I'm talking about?
Pioneer Industrial
one point, everyone commercial districts, everyone kind of just came here and threw up a pole barn.
Yep,
And the council decided that, no, we want something that looks more modern. It has better aesthetic and trying to build the tax base around that. And so that was why that decision was made back in 2003 and has been upheld since then. So that's where that's coming from. If we want to depart from it, then we can have that discussion.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that my preference would be to not change that. Also, Corinne, feel free to jump in at any point if any of this, we do have a planning commissioner here, no pressure too, but if you have thoughts. No, you're more than welcome. That's why we have you here. So more than welcome to.
Well, so I do just have a couple questions, because I do understand that it is not a permitted product anywhere, but I mean, I understand a couple of things about steel, especially in the current climate of supply chain that we're in, right? Like, so all that to say, is there not a way to permit it through a process other than changing the ordinance? That's my question. No.
Not unless we're
Either go
talking.
all in, or you.
Yeah. No, the only thing we could potentially look at is a PUD, but for just that seems, yeah. And but a variance, there's no hardship in terms of the lot constraint, right?
Yeah.
So.
I get that, I just think that sometimes the ordinance binds our hands, right, rather than bringing a benefit in every situation, and so that's why I was asking that question, but I do understand that it doesn't meet the requirements for the alternatives. Yeah, no. Other than that, I mean, so I do think in terms of bringing a business, I like that you're a small business owner. I like that appeal. I like the potential that that those other types of businesses, individually owned businesses or small businesses could potentially develop out in that area. I think that there is a desire for more of that, particularly here. People see this community as like, I can go X amount of more minutes farther to get all of the big box kind of mainstream stuff, and so they're drawn to this this idea. So I like that, and I like the idea. I was a little bit disappointed that the greenhouse wasn't going to be, you know, agrarian. I'm sorry, but I would love the idea of like, I think it also appeals to a growing number of people, local produce. So that would be something that I would just maybe plan to seed in your mind, is that people really like the idea of being able to get fresh and local produce. So that might be something to consider as you think about, is it possible to bring maybe another business in or something else along that area to help with some of the finances. But I do think it's exciting, and I would just say it does sound like there are some high hurdles and some challenges that I would encourage you to kind of take the feedback, and Natalie is great at coming up with you know, workable solutions, and so I would just say keep trying, but that's my initial feedback.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm online, not as quite as sophisticated as Jeremy, but it's looking at the Blaine Radisson and the Brooklyn Park Zinnia pet places and stuff. I'm assuming there's significant amount of backing and stuff. One of them looks like a Cabela's. I just remember driving by one and I'm like, when did they open here? And all of a sudden somebody said it was a pet animal deal and stuff. Those buildings would absolutely conform to what we're talking about here, a brick, glass, 25% steel, those kind of things. But you could almost make them look like a red barn by painting them. I mean, and I know what you're trying to do. I love your vision.
Yeah, I totally understand you guys' point. If one person does it, it unravels the vision of the city. I totally get it. I'm just so practical. Put an inferior product in for more money is how. I'm a small business owner, so not to be defensive at all about the road or anything, but I've only got so much money.
Yep.
Small business owner, so we're supporting.
It's one of those things you almost got to get all those lots sold and everybody buying in, and you got to do that all up front instead of building it up. Yeah.
And I think that building it with Corcoran and being an alternative to everything else. Is part of the appeal of it, you know, with a small business, just like Red Barn is. Specifically an alternative to those other dog places that are dog factories. We are the Red Barn.
Yeah.
Our dog outside, it is completely different, and so.
Yeah, the places I talked about specifically, I probably wouldn't take my animal there. I mean, I have 3 dogs and all the other critters in my place, it's hard to do. I'd take it to you if I ever need it. I just don't ever need it. Changing, and again, I don't want to turn it around. No, I'll stop. I was gonna say, what could you do on your current site to grow this much? Is there any consideration there? This is all location, and it's would
My location
really
is
help you a
phenomenal,
lot.
but I'm maxed out, I
Yeah.
have restrictions, and like I said, I've turned. March break last year, 400 customers, I couldn't fit in 500 on the 4th of July. You're gonna be a huge tax pull. So yeah. That's where I'm at.
Gotcha. Like I said, I'd recommend reaching out to the other 2 counselors. Please feel free to reach out to me as well.
Sure.
My cards are up front, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I if it were my project, I would take a look at how some of the site could be possibly be reworked to try to find that level where maybe the road is doable, where it's not as long of a road for this phase of the project. Figuring out some of those access issues. Again, on some of the building material front, figuring out what would meet or get us closer to the code than the proposed significant change to code. And Jeremy.
Can you go back to the plat drawing?
Yeah, sorry. There you go.
So if the concern is having to build the road all the way up. You might be being disadvantaged by being too forward thinking. Maybe instead of considering all the future parcels at this point, maybe you just want to consider having one access for one business. Knowing in the future, maybe you would want to plat it and extend a road, but maybe the initial phase is just building your business with one access at Stieg, changing your traffic flow around a little bit and finding a way to make that work. And then you don't have to worry about the excessive road infrastructure for the other lots until you actually have a greater base of revenue to support it. Just a thought.
Yeah, and that I'm open to if there's a pathway to that. And then as far as. The other thing as well, I've got your attention, if we are doing a single entrance here. And I can get around the financial hardships of that, making this just 90 degrees. And still being able to access my other Red Barn branded business through one entrance, because I don't want to run a road here, I don't want to bring. The wetland restrictions, etc. But being able to access both specifically Red Barn branded business through one entrance. Would that be something you guys would be open to?
Could you have them share the? Another idea to do that. Rather than have it be ultimately a separate building, when you're ready to build that. Could you have it be attached to the same building? So you don't need to worry about having. A separate access. You're just using one big parking lot.
Factories, I'm pushing it at the limits I am now. Everything's got its price, and the other reason I like this is this reflects road noise for this to keep this peaceful. So with screening in that building, that was thought of, if the dogs outside are here. So there is a very specific reason for it.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, if we're not planning anything, could I do a double entrance here? Where they can go in and out here to access that and get rid of this.
That's all part of the study that
think
Kevin
so,
was
but that would
talking
have-
about
Okay.
as far as. What
Yeah,
The feasibility study.
that whole feasibility thing is a good deal. I think, Kevin, you said it. I think Natalie, you said it too. These guys have been doing this for a little while. They might have a pretty good idea on how to flip the buildings and stuff and make it more advantageous.
Yeah.
I mean, we could sit here and talk about it all
Yeah.
night. I'd love to sit here and talk about it all night. It's those outside components as far as what it's built of is a concern of yours, obviously. And then I think I'd love to see it. I'd love. It's a neat deal. And then when I sit and I listen to all of the people that talked about the international deal and everything that went in up there and how much noise and the dislike and those kind of things, how obnoxiously big the building was and all those things. It turned out, I think, pretty good. I haven't heard anything from the neighbors and stuff, but I'm trying to think of what the neighbors would say about this turning into commercial from industrial. I'm trying to remember what everybody said. That's not industrial, but we put that international thing there anyhow. I don't remember all the conversation.
Yeah,
One good thing is a lot of them are bringing their dogs to me already.
there you go.
At an assumption.
All right, well, it's the holidays around the corner, so.
Just wanted to, so we're trying to look into if you can have more than one principal structure on a lot and principal uses. There's some things that are unknown. Generally, we need to look into code, but generally we do not see more than one principal building on a lot. We generally don't see that within commercial. So that would be
The plan.
something that we'd have to understand if you were wanting to have those be together.
Oh, I think he was saying he doesn't like that.
He wants it
Separate.
separated.
But then I think we would have to figure out the access,
Mhm.
and that's the biggest challenge we have. So just a note that we're.
Yeah.
Into all of
I think those are the
Well,
big things that,
Sorry,
Oh,
even
okay.
access and utility services, because we don't allow shared utility services. So each lot gets their own utility service. So that's something else to factor.
okay,
And as we get more detail, more bubble up, but that's also an ordinance that I don't know what his assumption was. We haven't talked about that, but
I assume that, yeah.
that we'd have to figure out a path and easements would have to be dedicated. So that's a wrinkle with kind of the isolated lot there, access utilities, just things to factor.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully we got you some feedback on some of the details and some of the bigger picture stuff that maybe you can work on and if you'd like to come in again, we can always set you up for another second concept plan, hopefully with more of the council here. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me, to the rest of the council, I'm sure, to staff, and we can hopefully try to figure something out.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys for the support or the positive feedback.
We did,
And I did have one question, Kevin. The utilities, can you, so I can get going on some research, specifically how that ties into the shared access? What utilities specifically?
Well, I mean, specifically, public utilities would be sanitary sewer and water.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to run one pipe and then split it off. So it would need a debt from our public main, we would need a service connecting
Yeah,
to your property, and then
Yeah.
you're talking about crossing property. And it gets.
yeah, it was kind of
So
another
we
reason.
want an isolated
makes
easement
sense.
to a different property, we want isolated services to each property.
Okay,
And then that's why we generally see them fronting a public right of way, because then that's the easiest access we have.
understood. Okay.
And that brings up one last thing too, is the Maple Grove aspect of this, because currently we are getting our water from there. I think
know.
you're aware, yeah. So it would require them to be at least somewhat on board with that change.
Something I did budget for was a well contingency if we had to go down that path, and that's something we could talk about later if that was,
Gotcha.
that one I did budget for.
Okay,
All
great.
right, guys. Well, thank you all. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry
Thanks a lot. I
Christmas.
Appreciate you guys.
Have a good one.
don't
I've
give
saved.
up, don't give up. Huge vision and your kids are great. I love it.
Okay.
Better behave than my kids.
Yeah, your kids are.
Move on to 9, which is unfinished business, which just consists of items 9, A, B, and C. And we have public comment opportunities.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone joining us virtually, can press star and I, or click raise your hand and we can recognize you. We do still have some folks on. No one is raising their hand.
Okay, we'll go on to 9A.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We had discussed a goal setting session and was given some direction to move, check into what it would look like to do goal setting with a facilitator that we've used in the past. I did get a quote from Phil Kern, and he would be looking at about 1,900 for goal setting, and then we do have some ancillary costs with printing and materials for running the event itself, but just wanting to get some feedback from council on whether or not we want to host it as staff, or if we want to bring in the facilitator to host that process. I did, fortunately with our system not working, so I can't show you the doodle poll up here, but we do have a preferred date. I have not heard from everyone yet, but the date with the most availability currently is Tuesday, January 17th.
Okay,
Seems to have the most. That works
I'm
for
in.
you?
sounds good.
These are rough for me, but
Well, we can figure out the date part of it later.
Yep.
In terms of doing it ourselves or engaging with Phil Kern to do it. Any thoughts on that? We had a little bit of discussion at a previous meeting about that. I think staff,
I think it'd be nice to have somebody herding the cats, they
yeah,
call us that.
and I think staff's position, and correct me if I don't want to speak for you guys, but was that it allows you guys to be part of the process more, and also not, if you have to run it, you can't really,
It's hard to
Yeah.
do, but both hats running back and
Yes.
forth. It allows you to be really engaged and try to be thinking on your feet and being
Right.
part of the process, but
I think for that price, honestly, it's not too bad. And I think if we do it, keeping in mind some of the comments, I think Alan maybe mentioned, John, about some of the stuff we probably can cut out from the past two that we've done, just because we have some continuity on council, and I don't know that we have any big changes to our vision statement that we're thinking about. So maybe some of that stuff we can cut out.
and those were things when I proposed to Phil, that I did let him know that we weren't necessarily looking to do those
Perfect.
portions. So that's why it's a little bit pared down from.
Sounds good.
It's not all new, it's a refined kind of deal because we're all still here.
Yeah. And I'll make a motion to engage Phil Kern for strategic planning / goal setting services for 2023. Entertain a motion for that. We'll make a motion for that. Second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Aye. Jeremy?
I said aye.
Oh, I always miss one.
No problem.
Okay.
I can say it twice.
We'll go ahead and send out some additional potential dates to council and see if there are other dates that work.
Perfect. Okay, item 9B, 2023 fee schedule.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We had a work session on the 2023 fee schedule back in early December, and we're proposing some changes to the fee schedule. We talked about several of them that we were looking at potentially making at the December 8th meeting. We're looking at making a change to just a couple of changes and how it flows, moving sign permits to planning and zoning, a couple of things like that. We had some updates to the police section, and Matt did let me know that it does look like there was a change to the shooting range, that we just have a title change, I think, that we need to make on that. And it's not a permit, it's actually a review. So we undelete our review line item there. We changed it to permit and that, just to be accurate. It's a review of shooting ranges annually. And then we'd like to add some language to the recreational vehicle permit, that if they do not
Yeah, it was basically, I think, how the recreational recreational vehicle permit was intended to be implemented was $10 per year, but it's initially a 3-year permit. But in the next year, it would only be a 2-year permit, following year 1 year, they would all expire at the same time, so we only have to resupply the colored permits once every 3 years. Rather than having to manage multiple different stickers and stock throughout as we cycle through it. So I think it was $10 a year is probably more accurate than a set 30-year or $30 for 3 years. It's right, but it's a little bit of semantics probably in just the way it's written. So there maybe just be a clerical
You know,
clarification.
you need to change anything or
I think if, as long as you're comfortable with us making that clear.
we're all good with that change.
That as well as that review.
Yep, we're all good with that.
And then besides that, we did want to let council know that we are looking at making a change to. We had talked a bit about building permits and reviewing that. We did make some tweaks on a few areas where we were not that we felt needed to reflect the cost. And then we did are proposing a change in how we're doing the valuation portion of the building permit section.
Okay. Any questions?
I get a couple of calls from some industrial folks that they got their bill and it was incorrect. It was almost 3 times what it's supposed to be. You guys are
For-
handling that, working on that for
Yeah.
water.
So the change that we talked about at the change that Maggie was proposing for base fees is related to SAC units. And so
Okay.
it is something that we would recommend changing. When you have a commercial use, you have an equivalent to your individual house use. And so we have a determination from the Met Council on how much sewer usage they're going to have. Generally, sewer usage is related to water usage because what's going down the sewer is generally related to water.
Yep.
So changing our base fees to reflect that, to make sure we're capturing the right of, if 4 times as much water is going down, we want to make sure to encapsulate that in the base fees for the maintenance for the system was the idea behind it. It's certainly a policy decision for the council. That was just our idea on how to make sure that we're appropriately capturing that. One thing that we could look at doing is if there are organizations that aren't using as much water, creating a policy in January that could take effect before those fees to allow some credit for that. So that's something that we've been talking about on a staff at a staff level to kind of allow some flexibility, but also allow when there are users that are using more to capture that base fee at an appropriate amount. So
The one said that they'd contacted you and Maggie's
And
working on it. That's Protect.
yeah, and so she
The other one,
looking
I told him to
at
call.
making a change for next year. And so allowing, if you're comfortable with it, we could come back with a proposed policy that allows some buy down if there's some usage, if they can show that usage isn't as much in that base fee.
Sounds.
Makes sense. We just want to find a way to capture the base fees in an appropriate amount, but also a lot. When SAC is determined, it is based on a nexus, and it could be that your business might be a little bit different than other businesses, but within the same use. So we want to allow for some flexibility by doing that potential reduction based on a administrative review.
To answer your concerns, Dean.
I think so. I'm concerned that it's 3 or 4 times the value of what it was. But I mean, we've got it in here that non-residential water-based fees are based off
We
of,
said per unit, so this is the clarification, is we've always said per unit, but we never clarified what the unit was. So. It was unclear what unit was, so we've looked at some other cities to see how that they've done it, and it looks like they do it on the residential equivalent unit, which is similar to the SAC.
So is that just calculated as like an average water usage divided by some denominator that would be equivalent to a residential unit? Or is it just assigned based on business type?
There's square footage calculated in it. It's a pretty complicated unit.
And Met
process.
Council basically issues it. So
Yeah.
so we've been undercharging for a long time. Is that what
I
we're
think
saying?
that Maggie is concerned that we're not collecting enough base fee. For the use of that. Now,
so right now, we're kind of charging at a lower level for most of the people. We feel like the fair charge. You want it, for lack of a better word, is more midline, and then we do want to find a way to have an allowance for a specific user that's less. Right
Okay.
now, we're basically designing a system for the less user, and so we're just trying to be more equitable to every property. So, but recognizing that the SAC fee could be different, so we're elevating that to be more accurate, we believe. And then we're working on an allowance for someone to justify that they're less, and then we basically have a process that allows them to justify why they shouldn't pay as much. So we're kind of opting everyone out right now. We would want to make them opt out to us, just because we feel like we're probably more off in that way than we are the other. So we probably have less people that are smaller users. We're not reflecting the
people that-
system accurately. We're essentially treating a business as a single family user, and that may not be applicable. So that's what we're trying to just standardize as more of the baseline. We want our baseline to be more reflective and then have the smaller.
But you can't go off of per 1,000 gallon units. You're saying that,
we do have that we do have that currently for the usage charge, but the base fee. Base fees are generally based on one unit of what the fees would need to be to cover that one unit's input.
Plus
system.
that on their actual usage.
And kind of a real broad example, Mike's probably the better one to interpret that building more type stuff, but really the intention of the SAC is really the impact on sewer system.
Mhm.
That's what it's intended to represent. It's a sewer access charge from the council. So they have the data, they have all how they calculate. We can kind of speculate on what they'll come back with. It always varies a little bit based on use, site plan or building plan. We just have to standardize it to something. So we're recommending standardizing it to that and then creating an opt-out justification code. So we're just trying to follow maybe a better process now that we have more information coming into us. But it does have an impact to some of the businesses that are connected, and so I think just the point is we're trying to be transparent with that change and then look at ways to opt people out if they can justify
Okay.
that they don't meet that standard, and there'll be some work to do and we'll have to create on that process.
For the treatment and storage trunk line availability charge in the Northeast, we're going from 18K to 24K. Does that entirely reflect what we're seeing in the water system, or is there going to be another step up?
That is the adjustment based on the recent bidding information we have, so. That would cover us, till we had a new significant data point change.
All right, I see Southeast is going up from 9 to 12.
And that's just based off of the denominator in the Southeast is larger. So when you look at the numerator and applying those costs, there's more buildable acres in the Southeast, so it spreads out more on a buildable acre usage. So that's why they may appear like they're different. It's strictly a cost into the system to a buildable acres, it actually ends up being a simple calculation. Because there's more users in Southeast, it spreads it over more acres.
Does the individual who we were just talking to about a concept plan know the updated UACP?
They would when they get into an application.
Yes, they, we will make sure to get these out to,
How would that work for a parcel where you are potentially developing a quarter of it? You're paying the TLAC fee over everything, I would presume, but maybe that's not correct.
You pay it over whatever's final platted. So, and it's at the time of final plat, current fee schedule has been our policy.
So if you were to plat what your building area will be and you had an outlot, would you just pay it on the building lot and not on the outlot portion? Or would you pay it on everything?
Kendrick calculates it. I think it's on what's being final platted and the outlot is excluded, I believe.
I believe it is that, we can verify that,
That
but
sounds-
it's my general understanding of it.
Anything else? Okay. Well, I will entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-476, adopting the 2023 fee schedule.
Sorry to let you finish. So moved.
Do you have a second?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you for the feedback, and we'll bring back a policy that allows for that non-residential water user to look at that credit.
Yeah, when it was explained to me, I understood what he was saying, and I think y'all will all be reasonable about it, and here's the price, and then actual
We want
usage
a
and
middle-
compare,
a middle ground of, to get us to where we think is an appropriate way to.
In a process that isn't super convoluted. for the
Yep.
user.
Mhm.
I think Also, a frustration of the small business, trying to do everything, so to justify that you're using less water, that you're only paying for what you're using for.
Yep.
That's frustrating.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
sorry.
Oh, no worries. You had a pause, like there was more coming. Appreciate the feedback. Okay, 9C, Trail Haven Bridge Replacement bid award.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is the kind of the construction phase, if you recall. About a month or so ago, you authorized us to procure the actual concrete culverts separately to kind of fast track the project. You did also authorize us to look into reopening the road. There was the issue with the mail delivery. The road was it actually came together really well. The road's actually reopened by the end of November, so I think that was within 2.5 weeks of that direction, so it's been back open. And we bid this out, it's before you, we had a lot of bidders, a lot of interest, price was good. We kind of had to fast track it because on Saturday we got notice that our pipe was ahead of schedule for delivery. So our contingency plan of unloading all this huge pipe at Public Works is expensive, and so now with the timing of that, we've been coordinating with the contractor and the supplier, and we believe we can deliver it to the site in early February, get the contracts in place. And then we can save a little bit on the handling. These are significant pieces. They're actually gonna have a crane on site to lift them and put them down. Well, that's the late minute ad, was just due to new information. They told us 8 to 12 weeks, and we're probably gonna deliver it more at 8, so. Maybe
and construction will happen.
construction of, yeah, so it'll be kind of phased construction, so we'll likely have to close the road down for a week. They'll put the box culvert in. That'll allow us to reopen it, and then come spring, we'll have to come back and
Finish the
rest
edges.
side and all that. And we can do that likely under, limited operations or something, so it'll be phased, we'll get the culvert pipe
Yeah.
in. And it's in frozen condition, that's a good time to do the culverts, we don't have to worry about water.
The creek is dry too, isn't it? Bone dry.
Yep, and then we'll phase it and come back and build all the
Outstanding.
shoulders.
We're gonna have another week of mail chaos.
We'll have to coordinate that, so there'll be a week where they're out, and we'll have to deal with
Do we
that.
still have the mailboxes out there?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we'll have to navigate that, but the good news is, once that week's done, we're through this for
Yep.
a long time, and then it's a big hurdle. A lot of moving pieces, but knock on wood, we do still have to follow up with 3 property owners on easements. That's an outstanding situation. But we have some time to do that, but that'll be a priority for me to close the deal on those. we've had conversations with all property owners, and I think they are understanding, and we just, have to work through that still. So that is something we have to finalize.
The city contribution, we're still, nothing's changed in terms of,
City contribution was really just that temporary expense that you did. Any easement costs are eligible. So we're trending towards, the 25,000-30,000 of local costs for this. Because we're about 10 grand under on that temporary install too as an update.
Awesome.
So they didn't have to bring in more fill. They were able to set that wooden
Bridge.
kind of bridge in place and didn't have to haul in a bunch of gravel. They were able to salvage it and make it work.
Great.
So we've got some momentum. So this is up.
Get her done.
keep me posted on the timing of potential future closures, because I do have that line with, okay. I do have kind of that line of communication with the congressional inquiry. I got in on the mail. So maybe I could hit them up again and see if there's,
Simple on for
Yeah.
5 days.
again, there has to be something beyond just the route driver that the USPS contracts with deciding, I don't want to do that road. That can't be how it's done, so. Got a congressman who will try to help us out. We'll see what happens.
Wonderful.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to authorize a notice of award to New Look Contracting for the construction of the bridge in the amount of $194,601.
I so move.
I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, on to 10, we have a public comment opportunity. If there's anyone online.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone joining us virtually can press star 9, click reactions and raise. your hand.
This is for
Name and address for the record.
10A through E.
It's for 10A through E. And council currently no one is raising their hand.
Okay. Go right into 10A.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight in front of you is a cropland rental and tax implications discussion. Maggie has been working on this for the past several months. The county has changed their policy related to payment in lieu of taxes, and that has created a different type of tax burden for the renter of our current land, creating a pretty significant tax burden that they didn't envision, and we didn't envision with the rental that we currently have. So really today, our request would be the county is requiring this land to be paid for our rental, or the taxes be paid. It can be paid by the renter. They weren't aware that there would be any tax implication, because for
Because it
last
shouldn't have been.
20 to 30 years since we've been doing this, there has never been a tax implication. And unfortunately,
County's being
there is.
unreasonable.
And we have had multiple conversations with them. We've gotten the city attorney involved, and there is not, unfortunately, not a way to get it to be without saying that we didn't rent the land and then waiving that.
Yeah, without us committing fraud.
Yes.
Yeah.
That they asked. if
Which was
we'd
a
be willing to
suggestion
do
of theirs.
that.
Yeah.
The county did ask if we'd be willing to say that nothing was taken from the land, but we know that it was farmed this year because that's what it was intended to be done. So
It's an infuriating situation.
yes, it's a challenging.
What happens if
situation.
we don't? Do they take the land away from the city? Or do
It's
they?
not a take the land away from the city. They'll go after the renters. Right now,
Yeah, that's
it's
the
all on the
problem.
renters.
If it was going after us, I would agree. I'd say, come get it. But it would be impacting the people that we've rented it to.
Yes, they will
They'd
come after
go
for
after
a
them.
lien of the people who are renting the land.
What would they
Because
put a lien against? Their other property?
my understanding is that they have a way to collect the personal property tax, and they will go after the renters for the personal property tax.
What if we refund the rental fee?
Even if we refund the rental fee, we have tried to refund the rental fee. It's
They believe this was a misinterpreted thing and that they are correcting something that they've been interpreting wrong for years. I don't think that that's the case.
It gets under my skin because that's exactly what happened with the Green Acres property tax
Mhm.
reduction. And all that it's doing is pushing anything that's related to rural agriculture farther and farther and farther away from the urban area, which is
Yep.
not at all the way that a city should be built.
And it benefits no one to make this
Exactly.
change. Yeah.
But they're perceiving it as a missed opportunity to collect income. And,
Yeah.
you know, if we were hurting for money, that would be a different subject. But as a county and as a state, we have an excess of surplus. So to even suggest fraud is just.
I hear you 100%. It's infuriating.
So do we, next year, do we not rent
We,
it?
I
Is
think
that-
that would be the
that's what
suggestion
we're
would be
gonna
to terminate the
suggest.
contract,
That
unfortunately.
Can we get a flock of chickens that we just let run wild on the lot and?
well,
So that's gonna be my question, is this piece of parcel, the one in particular that's at the 11,500 mark, is it not? Getting a property of agricultural property tax reduction?
it's city land, it's tax exempt. So they're not they're calculating it based on believe it's related to the agricultural use and not the land value at all.
Because that's really high for agricultural use, most agricultural properties, even of the size, are somewhere around $3,200 for property taxes, so that number is really, really high. Even for something associated with agriculture, so for that big piece of parcel to sit there and not feed anyone and not to benefit anyone, you are going to have a massive amount of invasive growing. There's gonna be nothing to control it will have to be managed, which I'm sure you guys as a city want to do, like, manage nature preserve. Whereas like right now, I mean, you gave me the opportunity, I would run a bunch of animals on it.
I know, and we would like to, but we have been told by the county we can no longer do that, is the challenge, so we.
Brent, if you'd like to co-write a letter with the county commissioner, I'm serious. I'd be more than happy to sign on to that. And I don't know that it will change anything, but we can at least make it heard that we're kind of pissed about it.
Have we talked to Kevin Anderson?
Not about this specifically, but next time I see him, it's on my list. It's ridiculous. It's pretty infuriating, but I think given this exact situation, I think we can't let the person we're renting it to, we can't let the responsibility fall on them. I think we
No,
need
I
to-
agree with
we
that.
need to take that hit, bring it up with the county and try to sort that out later. I'm sure they won't listen to us, but still make some noise. And I think unfortunately, we have to terminate the contract going forward because it's just going to create this problem again.
What kind of value does a farmer pull out of these parcels? Would it still be worth their while to farm even if they had to pay that, or is it?
No,
No, not if they're paying this.
how many acres?
We're talking about, one is,
49 is.
49 total.
49 he can farm?
So you can pull $30,000 from just raising meat chickens right now, because as much as everybody believes that there isn't a run on food supply in the grocery stores, more and more people are beginning to feel like there is, and there is a you know, a taxation on supply chain system. So more people are looking to get local supply, especially for meat. And so, yeah, I mean, chickens are easy, 6 to 9 weeks, and then you can butcher and you can do, you know, at least $30,000. Does that make it profitable though? Because the amount of labor that goes into that butchering alone, that number of chickens, because the local butcher does not butcher chickens, so when we do ours, we do it ourselves. Otherwise, it's $4 a bird. And so the trouble is that everybody wants their meat local and fresh, but they want it as cheap as they get it at Costco.
Mhm.
And so, yes, most people aren't gonna, and that's the labor intensive small farmer. I suppose if maybe somebody was doing dead corn, depending on.
On this, on a crop. On a 30-acre parcel, they're making. Probably $28,000, but they're spending 14 to 15 to plant it and do everything to it. I mean,
Right. It's not profitable. And the frustrating thing is it goes back, the end result will be no one does anything on it and they don't even collect money on it.
And we
So,
tried to explain
nobody
that
We
wins.
can't
to them.
we can't pay the farmer to put a crop on it and then we harvest crop.
Believe
I don't,
specifically no.
they have been very adamant that.
Good
no. So
grief.
we-
Yeah.
So we will be having to do weed control.
That was
To do that.
Could we just hire a partner? And then they can have that be
They-
how we
they-
maintain it.
Our attorney
but I-
believes we could do that. We could do however, the county does not believe we can. do that.
We
So
can't,
we
we
could do
can't
a-
have a farmer plant alfalfa on it, hay it.
And give them a contract for $1. There, I mean, there's a potential, our city attorney believes we can do that. The county has said that they don't believe, so we need to work through that.
Even though
That
there's
is-
no taxes,
Yeah.
I
It's
don't get
ridiculous.
it.
Because you're taking
Is it,
something.
do we
from
need to go to
the-
bottom of county? I mean, do we need to
It's
switch this out?
making me ready to make that jump. Absolutely.
Could we use it as a community farm? Like, I'm just
We-
saying, like,
we've
just having it
looked at
sit
all
there, it
sorts
just
of
seems.
different
It's stupid.
methods.
Not only, it's because it really will take city effort to maintain it, unless you want, you're gonna have, buckthorn growing everywhere,
I
is
mean-
what's gonna happen, and.
It's ridiculous. I'll bring it
Plant
up next
500
time I
oak
see
trees.
Kevin. You know, I'll
Let some
pass
trees
it
out in
along.
30 years.
It's very frustrating.
They just take so long, and they like that nice big wide open space with the sunlight, and so what typically ends up happening is there's the buckthorn or the invasive, or the ash trees come in and they grow up so fast and the oak doesn't have the chance, so unless it's maintained, which you could do, but again, that would be intensive labor.
I don't get it.
Oh, yeah.
Either do I.
Continue to look at options for how to maintain it in a way that. But terminate the contract, just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not working for either party, where.
are they gonna come back and tell us? We owe the farmer owes a back tax?
That's what. we'd
No,
be
that's what
covering.
we're trying to, that's what we're trying to solve today,
We're covering.
because we think it. They have said the farmer owes the back tax on this currently,
For previous years or just?
not just for this year. This is the first year that we owe it, so we're trying
That they change their
to,
minds.
to stop it.
Policy is.
Have they read Atlas Shrugged?
We really have been trying, we made sure
Bet you
John
guys
read,
have.
read the emails before we sent them, and we asked for appeal.
You loop me in on that
processes.
conversation going forward.
I'll send you some of our correspondence. with
Perfect,
them.
thank you. You just want a direction on that, though? I think we're on the
if-
same page that we do need to, unfortunately, we're not gonna pass that burden on to the person that we're renting it
Yeah,
to.
as long as.
We
as
have
long
to
as you're
cancel it.
comfortable With that, it'll come as a claim, but we
Okay.
just want to make sure, or that
Everyone good
that
with
we'll submit a check. But just want to make sure that you're comfortable with it.
I'm good as long as lure doesn't get zapped for anything.
And that's what we were trying to avoid.
Yep. I
Here.
think we're all good.
So,
Tell them sorry.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll keep you posted if I hear anything from the county, and I'll do the same. Okay, 10B Highway 55 Corridor Coalition.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We got a request or an inquiry to see if we would like to join the Highway 55 Coalition. As we do have a portion of the city that Highway 55 runs through, they're looking at making efforts to improve Highway 55, so potentially making it 4-lane throughout and other safety improvements. So we're wondering if council would be interested in joining. I do have a small caveat. It looks like it might be a $500.
$500. It was,
Membership
I
for our
got
size, so I apologize on that.
little
What does that get us to be part of a coalition if they won't listen to anything we have to say?
Well, I think they will. So what, I was speaking to the mayors of Loretto and Greenfield, the other day about it, and they are starting to make some progress on that kind of bottleneck of right where 55 hits Corcoran. Where it's 2 lanes, and they have plans apparently and know what they need to get or already have the easements. They're just working on getting the funding, and they've got a pretty good game plan on that to get it to be a 4-lane through.
From where to where?
I think initially it would be from
Hennepin County Public Works out there to,
I think it would at least be through just
Rockford.
past 19, and then they're talking about the next phase would be out to Rockford.
including stoplights, all those.
Yep.
things.
They're asking for a lot of money, and it helps them to have us be part of it, so that it's more of a regional ask. When you're,
Getting money from where?
I believe this is all details. I'll find out if I'm going in April to their next meeting, but from the state, from potentially federal, from the county, from,
Less money the city would have to put towards.
we shouldn't have to put towards anything that at this point
Not
at
that
least,
I'm
yeah.
Aware of that there hasn't been a request.
There certainly hasn't been an ask for it.
I'll bite my lip.
No, if you got feedback, I'd love to hear it.
John, what do you got to say?
What are your concerns?
No, I. Why do we have to pay to be a member when it's our property? I'll try and talk, no, nobody can talk like John.
We don't have to. We don't have to.
No, I'm just saying, if we don't. They'll overlook us, I mean,
And that threat hasn't been made. I think it was, the conversation I had was more, hey, if you'd like to be part of this, we'd love to have you. It would help the group and might be useful information for us.
I've been asked by multiple residents to try to improve access on the
I
55
agree.
because of how hard it is to safely get on,
Yeah,
especially at Rolling Hills at 19 also.
that was kind of my thought
Rolling Hills
process. And if,
Pioneer,
if we have,
all
if I'm able to have any input and make it slightly better, it kind of pays for that $500 real quick. My thoughts, but
Yeah, I would support it.
of them. Yeah, I'll say
Okay.
yes, I just,
sounds,
they. Better list of some of the stuff we want.
yeah, fair enough. And if, and if not, then we can just not pay it the next year and bow out. So I will make a motion to authorize staff to join the Highway 55 Corridor Coalition and submit dues as required.
So
Second.
We'll do it that way. Perfect. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. 10C.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Earlier this year, we did a phase 2 of the Public Works Department reorganization and created that permit technician position.
may I make a motion?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
I
John?
Move to adopt resolution 2022-147.
Second.
you.
Any further
We
discussion?
talked about it a bit.
Yes, we have. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Perfect.
Not
Can
new.
talk like John.
No, and you know what?
Did good.
Sometimes
You
those
just cut them right off.
those are
man.
well
Don't
timed.
do it.
Of one, we can make a motion on the next one. Also, very quickly, I did just want to let you know that one of the 2 groups that inquired about financial assistance no longer can make the meeting on the 12th, so they will be coming at a future meeting.
Okay.
There was interest from the second group related to housing and whatnot that was still potentially interested. I've not received their narrative yet. They had a deadline. So we may consider canceling
Okay,
that one if we don't get anything from them.
so we'd
But-
be tentatively scheduling, or we'd be scheduling both these ones, and one of the one on January 12th might be canceled if they're not ready.
If it's amenable to the council to have the discussion on financial
Have a
assistance.
good idea for a substitute for January 12th topic work session if you're looking for one.
Yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about, and I think, well, how timing wise, how much notice would we have to give of that change?
Oh, we haven't scheduled, as long as we have.
Like, as long as we schedule it,
As
we
long
just
as
have to
we
notice
schedule-
the topic,
We have to notice the topic because it's a special meeting,
but 4 days.
4 days notice.
And can I learn more about what this would entail? I know we had the discussion about the conduit financing previous. Is it that, or is this something different?
Is completely different. So there is a request to see if the city would be interested in, so there were two groups that were initially coming in. One is a group that is doing interested in a public-private partnership for a sports facility, as well as looking at potentially doing some tax abatement.
Was that the baseball one that we
Yes.
saw?
So it's, they've only.
They're not able
shown
to
a-
make that.
they haven't come in for formal concept plan, but they want to understand what we might be willing to support. So they can understand if the project would be.
I have a 40-acre parcel we can rent them. Willing to pay the personal property tax to the county on it.
So that's one group. The other group is a concept plan that will be coming actually the same day of this meeting. That is looking to do a multi-phase or multi-use. Project, mixed-use project that would have potentially some components for potentially using some TIF district funds for housing related to that, or looking at tax abatement. And just understanding if the council would be willing to look at those options as they move forward. They just want to understand really where the council sits on that.
I think a lot of it would be educational on
Mhm.
what the impacts and what the options are. I don't know that we'd be coming to any strong, definite conclusions out of that meeting.
Yes, I think.
Sorry.
I was gonna say Tammy would be available because Tammy Umdella, our financial advisor, is the really puts into place in other cities, has helped many cities throughout the state. If they're looking at financial assistance, help put that forward. So she's very familiar with what we can and can't do. And it's really a policy decision for the council on what our philosophy is for if we do any. And then just to understand tax abatement is really setting aside some funds and giving it back to them for their infrastructure costs generally, is how you see it. No, and it's related to. Anyway, I'm getting too into the weeds, but those are the kind of what I would envision it looking like if council wants to move forward with that. Or if we want to have that at a council meeting and have that discussion in that format, we could do that as well.
Knowing that we're probably going to want to do a police officer retention and recruitment work session, I would propose that we defer this one, that we're probably farther from any practical action to a later date, and give Matt the opportunity on the 12th.
Would you be ready for that on the 12th?
As long as the subcommittee is ready, I think it's really just bringing back the survey results and then kind of talking through some of those ideas and looking for direction from the council. So I don't think there's a lot to prepare as long as the subcommittee is ready to return the results from this.
With the one applicant, do you think that would be okay with them to?
I can
Bump
reach out to them.
The other thing would be, I want to make sure that we have ideally a full council for that. It's a pretty big topic.
And if they can't make it, if we change that, we could always discuss it as part of their concept plan. We're talking that night and see if Tammy could talk to that during the concept plan as well. That might be the other option. Since we had two requests at once, I wanted to package them
Yeah.
at once for us to get some feedback, but because and now that there's been this change, it might make sense to have that as part
Yeah,
of the
let's do it.
discussion on that day.
Let's do that. And then if we need to have the work session on it, have that be the 26th, and I would be okay with bumping the buffer yard one then,
That
first meeting in February, but then I'm gonna draw a line in the sand because it's been
Push
pushed.
on that one.
Yeah, we gotta,
Well, we need to bump that one we can't bump this one
we gotta finish
two
that
back.
one.
We just bump everything one down. We'll do it in February. It'll be fine. Took 2 years, so it's another month. So in terms of the day and time, January 12th and January 26th at 5:30, does that work for you guys?
So which is on which date again?
Now we'd be talking about doing the recruitment and retention for the PD on the 12th and the financial assistance with projects, all the TIF and tax abatement stuff.
I'll do everything I can to make the 12th. I don't know if it's possible. and
Okay.
I would make the 26th for sure.
Would you like me to have them do the financial stuff on the 12th during the meeting rather than doing a work session?
Yeah,
Or do you want to save? the
Let's
26th
let's do that.
the
Okay,
Well,
let's
it's a big
We could
meeting.
just call the work session and decide. I can.
decide the topic, just notice the topic later.
I can, how about we just table that one until the 12th, and then we can set up the 26th, the topic.
Yeah, let's do that.
Maybe we'll do
Okay,
that.
so I'll go ahead and call work session for January 12th at 5:30 to discuss police recruitment and retention ideas, and then we'll
Thank
figure it
you
out.
all. Thanks for the messiness of that.
Thank you. Okay, 10E, which was added to the agenda. Matt?
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. As you'll recall, on September 8th, the council authorized us to begin a police officer hiring process for a budgeted 2023 police officer position. We've identified our preferred candidates and just seeking a formal authorization from the council to extend the final job offer for lateral entry, subject to approval by the mayor and the administrator. I know they've already talked and believe we've had this conversation at council, but I don't know if we have the formal action. So we wanted to make sure that we formalize authorization to extend that job offer. And also to inform the staff that we just received notice that one of our current police officers has a conditional offer from another police agency and intends to go there. So asking for authorization to reopen the police officer hiring process for full-time police officer. And I would anticipate again that we do kind of a continuous review process with kind of an open-ended process until we find the candidates that we're wanting to move forward with. So I'm happy to answer any questions or
Any questions for Matt?
conversations you guys have.
Keep your standards high in the hiring processes, as you always have.
I don't want to fall behind again. I don't want you going. So if there's a recommendation, I would make it say yes to both.
Okay, I'll make the motion to authorize staff to extend the lateral job entry offer to the preferred candidate and authorize staff to begin the hiring process for the full-time police officer.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is pretty much everything. Oh, no, we have 11A active planning applications, nothing standing out
No,
much.
no.
But 11B is 2022 holiday food and toy drive recap.
Yes.
We have
and,
JCB and or Pete.
Yes, JCB is joining us virtually.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I am going to be reporting for both Pete and I today. So I hope that that is okay. And I appreciate your flexibility as I did not want to venture out into the cold and hope that my car would start after the meeting. So I appreciate it. But on behalf of myself and Pete and everyone else involved in the planning process, I just wanted to say thank you. You guys have always been so supportive of all of the events that we run, and we would not be able to do it without your support. So we really appreciate that. But the event took place last Tuesday. We visited 5 neighborhoods and ended at City Hall. We estimate, excuse me. I think I ran out of breath, which is the first for me. We estimate that we had approximately $15,000 in toys that got donated to Toys for Tots, and then approximately 1,000 pounds of food that got donated to Cross Food Shelf. So a very, very, very good holiday season for so many people. We had attendance by the council members, the Stanchion Bar, the Corcoran Lions, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, North Memorial, Loretto Fire Department, Rogers Fire Department, the Northwest Area JCs, Liz Booth, who was our Santa provider, and then many, many, many City of Corcoran staff. Without the attendance and involvement from all of these parties, it really wouldn't have been as successful as it was. And I think that with the extra involvement, we had a lot more lights and people tended to enjoy that. So we brought the holiday spirit to the neighborhoods and to the community, and people really enjoyed it. The approximate cost of the materials was about $750. There was some funding from previous gift cards for other events such as Night to Night that were left over. And then there was also overtime from staff attendance that would be lumped into that as well. But moral of the story, it was a wonderful event. We got a lot of people involved. And then I also want to point out that the Stanchion also donated pizza for before the event. So everyone was fed before they went out. So they were
It
especially.
was good pizza too. Really good.
Where's it from?
Santa Clara.
Chanticleer. I've never had it before. It was amazing.
Over by,
But so we just wanted to say thank you and that we all really enjoyed doing it from the feedback that I've received from those that were involved. And I even heard that Rogers is going to come back if they're allowed with even more lights to put on their trucks.
Awesome.
That Loretta outdid them, so they wanted to come back swinging.
Great job. I thought it went really well especially for our first year, and I think could be a sort of a cool Corcoran tradition.
Absolutely.
We
A
need.
heartier version of a parade.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone bearing the weather again. Just
Yeah.
this time we followed through with it.
Especially given the weather, how successful it was impressive. And you kind of went over everything, JCB. Thank you, but really appreciate your work and Pete's work on it. All of staffs, Public Works, Police Department, every other department pretty much had someone there or everyone there. And I mean, it was cool to see it, everything from squad cars decorated all, with lights and tinsel and everything inside to the snow plows to the fire trucks. It was just really cool.
Mhm.
So great job.
We should keep that on the snowplows year round.
I would love to see them try and plow with all of that on there.
Yeah, right. Especially today when it's 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Someone can sit in the plow truck with Pat.
No, but great job. This is something cool that we're just starting. So I'm
It
excited.
was really fun and it was great to see everybody out.
And it only took me about 24 hours to thaw off. So
You do need to get better at picking the dates. I think.
yeah, well, I did say that JCB and I was wrong, that she loses her date picking privilege, and it was not her choice. It was the council who changed which days worked. And so that's on us.
I voted against that.
Yeah, setting a date here.
I would suggest for next year, we pick a date and a backup date from the get-go. Yeah, and that way.
That
we
is the plan. We were thinking a Tuesday, Wednesday, one day
Perfect.
after the other, make it a little easier.
Perfect.
I would just comment that, I mean, as the city looks to create that sense of community that we've talked about before, without having one unified school district or, we're so segmented. I think this is one event that did really well to bring the community together and kind of reinforce that Corcoran identity. And as we know, it comes with a cost of time. And, same thing with Night to Unite, where it's intense on staff, it's extra work, but I think it's especially fun to see the staff show up and show out the way that they do with as overwhelmed as a lot of them are, and with all the extra things that they have going on, still willing to go that extra mile, I think speaks volumes about the people we have here. So
Absolutely. And just because it's on the top of my mind right now, I think it could be cool in future years if we have some of this area built out, maybe it's St. Therese or wherever, if it kind of goes into and has a tree lighting ceremony at the end.
Yeah,
be
that
kind
would
of
be
a
great.
cool little touch on it too. So
That amphitheater, that'd be a great place
Yeah.
for us to do Christmas tree.
sure. Well, we can have all sorts of discussions on that in future years, but
City Park.
City Park, yeah, there you go.
Great.
That could be cool.
So cool.
Lots of ideas, fun stuff. Okay, I think that is all we have. So unless anyone.
Could just get a
Yes.
vote and
Oh,
on
I-
the resolution. I didn't have. it
Detail,
on-
oh, yes, we had the added resolution.
Yeah.
I apologize. I probably should have said that.
No worries.
Sorry.
I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-149.
I'll second it. Or I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all
Can I-
those in favor say aye.
Can I add something to it?
Oh, withdraw the motion in second, sure,
Withdrawn.
go for it.
Can we set the date for next year's, at one of the meetings next month?
We did.
I believe the intention was I was coming back for the second January meeting and we could discuss dates,
Perfect.
potential
And
budgets at that time.
my first motion is fine.
Cool.
I just had that question.
Okay, so we have a motion, Jeremy
I
second,
will second.
perfect. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank
And I
you.
know as Santa that would be available.
You can make a call.
I'm just
How authentic is it?
putting it on the calendar right now.
Perfect. You know the guy. Alrighty. City council schedule, 12th is looking pretty busy potentially, maybe some stuff that might be moving, so.
I think that
Keep
there
an
might
eye
be a
on that.
couple items related to hack. Likely, we just talked about moving to the 26th, so we'll have a busy month.
Sounds good. Everyone have a great Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Well, thank you all. It's been a great year. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Really.
Meeting is adjourned. Oh, did I get a, did I adjourn a fish?
You adjourn without requesting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now we officially adjourn. Mayor got mad with power. Adjourning power.
You can adjourn this meeting, but can you make the plane show up?